Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to give you guys just another minute or so because we see people still logging in. So if you give us just 1 minute, we'll get started. Thanks. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Can everyone hear me okay? You're not able to speak because you guys are all on mute, but if someone could give me a hands up or a thumbs up in the chat, just letting me know that you can hear me okay. Perfect. Thanks, Kayla. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Erica. I'm with Capital Payroll Partners, and we are excited to have you guys here for the introduction to Employer on the Go. So just a housekeeping item, everyone is on mute. So if you do have any questions, feel free to post those in the question panel on the GoToWebinar toolbar. And we are going to take questions throughout the session. And then we also have a designated time at the end to answer any additional questions. So as we're going through it, feel free to post your questions in there. If we can't get to you during today's presentation, we will follow up with you individually. So just to get started, an agenda, we're going to talk about who is on the call today, what is Employer on the Go. We're going to look at the product live. We're going to go through a presentation so that you can see what the product looks like, the different feature functionality that it offers, as well as answering some questions along the way. And then we're going to talk about tools and resources that you have available to help you be successful. And we'll round out the call with any additional questions we may have missed. So on the call today, you have myself, Erica, I am facilitating, but we also have Nick, our senior account manager, and then Josh, our product expert. So we're all going to be contributing to the conversation. So again, if you do have any questions, feel free to use that question bar. So what is Employer on the Go? For those of you who are not using Employer on the Go, it is an intuitive online payroll and workforce management tool that provides you with a reliable and easy to use platform for payroll, electronic onboarding, time and attendance, HR, and more. If you're already using the platform, thank you for joining. We're hoping that you learned some additional tools or functionality that you weren't aware of during today's session. Or that you may find a way to expand this in your business to maybe have managers log in and take some of that burden from you to maintaining some of the employee data. So Employer on the Go is an online portal that you can access from anywhere, any browser, any device. So if you're on vacation and you want to log in and check, which you shouldn't be doing because you're on vacation, but we understand business still has to be ran. So you can log in from the beach, log in from home, wherever you have internet access, any browser, you're going to be able to log in and see your payroll accounts. You'll have access to logging in and maintaining employee data. So if you need to add someone new, maybe someone moved, or you need to terminate an employee, you're going to be able to do that without having to go through our support team. You're able to enter your payroll hours for processing, and Josh is going to show you what that process looks like. You can access your payroll documents with ease. So you already received them, but you're able to get them online. And then run reports when you need them. So if there's specific data that you need that you don't want to wait on our team to provide to you, we encourage you to log in and have access to those reports and get what you need out of the system. And then the security permissions can be modified. So I mentioned earlier, if you have a manager that you want to encourage them to log in and maintain their employees, or maybe you have multiple locations and multiple people need to have access to the account, we can set up the security permissions to fit your needs. So if you want someone to be able to view but not change, or you want them to be able to see the employee data but not the payroll hours, or rates or things like that, you just let us know what you need and we can modify it to fit your needs. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Josh, and he's going to share his screen and do a live in-product demonstration. Bear with us just 1 second as we turn this over to him. All right, Josh.
All right, guys, just let me know when the screen is visible and then we will jump in.
We can see you, you're all set.
Perfect. So everyone, this is the Employer on the Go portal. This is just the home page, the dashboard where you can come in and you have access to just about everything right from this screen. Now, there's a lot of different things on here. So we're going to take a quick walk around the screen. We're going to do it clockwise. We'll start with our shortcuts here. So the shortcuts are just icons to different parts or portions of the platform. As Erica mentioned, there's a shortcut into entering in your payroll hours. You can view and add the employees. She also mentioned reporting. So that's what these 3 buttons are right here. And we're going to jump into what all of those are here in just a minute. Your next thing over is your key information. So this allows you just at a glance to see when your next pay date is, how often your payroll is run, what that pay period is in terms of its date. So the pay start, the pay period end, who's responsible for servicing your account, what's the best phone number to get in touch with them, and what's the best email address. So if you ever have questions, concerns, or just want to get in touch with somebody, if you're using Employer on the Go, this information will be there and you'll know who is responsible for your account and you can email them directly, or you can hit this button up here and submit a ticket in that will go to your rep as well. There's a few icons here as well, and these just help you determine what's going on. If you are using timekeeping, there are time cards and time off requests that can be submitted in by the employees. So they will tell you, hey, are there any that need to be looked at? If you are using MyGo, which we'll touch on here as we go through, there is an onboarding process that you can utilize. So if an employee's in the middle of it, you can see. And lastly is this employee setup. And what this does is if you started to add in an employee but haven't quite finished it, it will display right here. You can simply click on any of these tiles or buttons, and it will take you right to the screen to address that. Below that is tasks. And what the tasks are these are things that Capital Payroll needs for you to do. So it could be something as simple as, hey, please give us your updated SUTA rate. It could be, hey, please make sure to update all the employees' direct deposits. Whatever they need you to do, they can post a task here. You are easily able to see what the status is, the priority, and if they need a date due. So this just gives them an extra way to communicate with you on what's needed on your end. And then lastly, as we circle down here, are the announcements. So this is where they can post announcements to you. So, hey, we have a new service team member coming on. Please welcome so-and-so. Reminders about quarterlies or year ends or any changes that they may need y'all to make them aware of. Or if maybe they're going to have a company event and they're going to close an hour early on Tuesday. Not only can they send you emails about that, but they can also post that right here. So it just allows them to communicate with you in just yet another way. Also on our dashboard, there are a couple of other tabs. The one that we want to jump into rather quickly here will be the payroll and HR calendar. So just like the key information shows you all of those dates that are important, the payroll and HR calendar here will give you various dates as well. So you would be able to come in and see, hey, when is payroll due to them? When are the next pay dates? If you want to check and see when your employees' birthdays are, you can turn on this one and it shows each of their birthdays if you do something special for them. something like that, but you can see the various options that are available. So this is just another way that you can keep up with what's going on. So before we jump into our next area of the platform, which will be how to set up and edit an employee, I'd like to pause and see if there are any questions that we should address.
Thanks, Josh. As a reminder, guys, the question bar is on the GoToWebinar toolbar, so feel free to post your questions as we're going through. I don't see any questions so far, Josh.
All right, perfect. So as I just said, we're going to jump into employees and how to edit and add them. Now, there's a few different ways that you can get there, but the easiest ways are these two links right here. If you want to view them, obviously click view. If you want to add, click add. For sake of time, we're going to just go in and view and just go through what the tabs are for the employee and getting them set up. So we're going to act as if we're setting up Miss Gavel here for the first time. So I'm going to click edit down at the bottom after I've highlighted her. So you would come in and anything that you see with an asterisk, this little red asterisk right here, means that that's a required field. An ID will auto-populate. You can, of course, change that, but one will be there. We need their first and last name, their social, a status, and where they're working. So in this system, there's a hierarchy, division, location, and department. You need to specify what hierarchy that employee is going to work in. If you want to, you can upload pictures just so depending upon the size of your company, you have, in one place a picture of everybody. You can easily keep them up to date. You can see that there's a lot of demographic information that's available as well. So you can come in and store all that information. So you would just fill out anything with an asterisk and then move on to the next tab, which would be contact. So this is where you'd put in their address, their phone, their email address. And if you are using MyGo, which is a great product, again, we'll touch on that here in a little bit. You can simply, as you're setting them up, check these two boxes to not only send them a MyGo registration and turn that on, but also activate onboarding if that is another product that you choose to use, which would then drastically reduce the amount of information that you are required to populate. If you are using onboarding, instead of having to populate all of these tabs yourself, the only thing you really need to do is first, last name, and email address, and then just check that the social is not on file. They'll fill it out. And then you can hit send MyGo and the onboarding, and then they will go through a process to fill out all of this information. Next tab over is pay info. Whatever your standard and default pay frequency that Capital is set up to run will default in, so will all of the dates. You can select their pay type, so whether they are an hourly employee, a salary employee, a 1099, you can specify what they are. And then you can come in, populate their payday or their pay rate for them, so then the system knows what they're going to get paid. Again, if you are using timekeeping, there's a lot of nifty features that you can turn on, auto breaks, just so you get a quick glance at what those are. Next, we'll come over to the VPD and History tab. So anytime that a change is made to them, to the employee after you set them up, whether that is a change in their pay type, their frequency, their pay rate, you change their job title, it's going to populate here within each line, and you can see the update date that it was made. So it just gives you an audit trail to see, like, all right, well, they were at $12 an hour, now they're at 14, and we're going to put them to 17, etc. as it goes down. If you do have any employees that do get paid different rates, maybe by different jobs or different departments that they worked in, that is where this would be set up. Just for the sake of time, we're not going to dive too deep on that, but you can definitely work with Jim and Nick over at Capital Payroll to run through how that would need to be set up. So when you're entering hours, it automatically knows the correct rate to pay them based either on the job they're doing or the department that they are working in. The next tab over is deductions and accruals. So this is where you would specify what deductions this employee may have, whether that would be something like a 401k, whether they have a garnishment for child support, medical. You can come in and turn that deduction on. Now, each of the deductions that you see here are already set up at the company level. So that would be something that Jim and Nick would manage, but you can enable each one of these for each individual employee. You can turn them on and off. You can remove them. You can remove them by hitting the X. You can edit them by hitting the pencil. Example, if this person is going to have a medical deduction, we would want to make sure that it's a Med 125. It's a fixed amount each pay, and the amount is $125 each pay. And then we can determine it on or off. There are a significant amount of other fields that you can set up, such as effective date, when should that deduction start, the same as the start and end date. So you can say, hey, turn this deduction off after a specific date. But for the most part, that's all that you should really be managing. Once you're ready and you're happy with it, just hit the checkbox that I just did and it will save it and you can move on. If you're ever using with something like a 401k and they want to change how they're withholding for it, you can come in and edit that as well. Some people want to do a % of gross, others may want to do a % of net or a fixed amount. Whatever option that employee chooses, you can come in and change it and then set the according either dollar amount or percentage. And then it will withhold at that percentage for that employee. So just note that each deduction at the employee level can have a different withholding setup if you need it to. Accruals, whatever your standard policies are, you would have already communicated that with Jim and Nick. They would already have that set up. So if there are standard accruals that come in, even if they don't start until the employee's been with you a year, they would default in whenever you create that employee, they would appear here. And then you should just know that in the back end that Jim and Nick manage, they would have the table set up that say, don't start accruing for X amount of time, or for, year one, they accrue 1 week of PTO and 1 day of sick. Year two, they get 2 weeks. And then after year 5, they get 3, etc. All of that would be managed in the back with Capital Payroll managing that for you. You would just be able to come in here and then remove it if need be. The other thing to note is you can see what their active hours balance are, what they've accrued for the year, and what they have used either in terms of hours or dollars, and what their current running total is for that year. Moving on to our next tab, direct deposit and workers' comp. We're really just going to focus on the direct deposit tab up here. So the direct deposit is where you can come in and you can add in the bank account that they would want set up. Now you can add in as many bank accounts as you need for that employee, whether that's 2 or 3. But just to give you a gist of what goes on, we need their routing, we need their account number, and it's going to ask you to confirm it. There are numerous banks preloaded in the system. So based on the routing number, the majority of the time it will pre-populate the bank. If it's one that the system doesn't recognize, it just asks you to confirm that that is the correct number. So then you would just tell it, hey, this is a local bank. An example around here, maybe Bank of the Ozarks. So then you have account type, is it checking or savings? And then your calc method. So in here, there are a couple of options. There's percentage of net, a fixed amount, and remainder. So if they want $500 deposited into their saving and then the remainder to go into another, you could set that up for them just by having 2 lines. One would be a savings account and then fixed amount, $500. The next one would be remainder, checking, and you wouldn't need to populate a value here at all. Just make sure they're both active, and then you are good to go. Again, you can come in, set up as many as you need. You can leave their old bank account if they're changing it. You could just deactivate it by unchecking that box and then adding in the new one. And then the next time that payroll is processed, it will direct deposit into the new or combination of active accounts as specified by your calc methods and your percentages. The last tab that you should need to focus on in setting up an employee is the W-4. And in that sense, you're gonna, or the withholding, sorry about that. And in here, you're gonna come in and you're gonna specify first the tax group. Now this should default in what the standard tax group for your company is. Most companies operate in a single state, but if you do operate in multiple states, work with Jim and Nick to determine, do you have multiple groups that need to be set up so you can have the employees taxed appropriately based on what state they live or work in. You could then come in and it's fairly straightforward. You specify the marital status for both the federal and the state. You just follow the instructions down the side. Is step 2 box checked? If so, check it. How many exemptions do they have? Qualifying children, other dependents. Do they need to claim any other income? Any deductions? Is there an alternative tax? Is there any additional withholding that they wish to do other than their single plus, or their status plus their deductions? And then if they just want the additional withholding as the only amount, which some people do, you could just check that box, make sure that there is something populated there, and then you are good to go. At that point, you would simply just hit save. And you will be directed back to the screen here. Any and all information that you put in will then be stored here. At any point that you need, you can just go to the home page, hit view, come in, find the employee's name, and then click on whatever tab it is that you need to view their information. So at this point, I will pause again to see, are there any questions that anybody has in terms of setting up an employee or potentially making changes to them?
Thanks, Josh. We do have one question from Kayla. If we are currently sending payroll manually, would this info be in your system already or need to be added manually? So Kayla, it's already in the system. We're basically giving you a front version of what we're seeing on the back end. So if you make a change in here, it's automatically going to update what we're seeing and what we're doing for you. Another important thing to note, just like Josh mentioned, if your employee is using electronic onboarding when they first come on board, we're going to collect demographic information, direct deposit, emergency contact. They're going to complete the W-4 and I-9. We'll get their social security number during that process, as well as sign off on those forms. And then you can also include custom forms like employee handbooks, social media policies, anything additional you want them to sign off on. Josh, can you go into the files tab or under general so they can see? So anytime the employee completes that electronic onboarding, those files are going to be saved on the employee profile. So you do have access to all of those documents. They also have access to the documents when they log into My Employer on the Go. So they can go back and see forms that they completed, download the handbook or whatever additional documents you wanted to share with them. An additional question, are contractors set up any differently from employees?
So the answer is not really. The one thing that you would just want to make sure is when you come into pay info, your pay type here instead of hourly and salary would be contract. When you do that, it's going to turn off and just say, hey, we're going to turn off all tax withholding. You can choose, okay, at which point you'll see that it is going to mark all of these as tax exempt down here. So it's not going to withhold any taxes. Sometimes contractors still have taxes withheld. Very simple. You can just come in and say, all right, they want to have state, FICA, Medicare, and federal withheld, but because they're a contractor, we don't have any unemployment or something that we need to go. You can then still fill this out and it will still withhold that amount. You just would not be the one that would be responsible for the quote unquote employer portion of FICA or Medicare. It would do the full amount for them. Again, the only real difference here would be in the pay info tab. Just make sure they're marked as contract instead of hourly or salary. The rest of the process would remain the same.
Great. Did that answer your question? Sorry, is it MA Satterfield? If you have a follow-up, please feel free to post that. Perfect. Thanks, Josh. You answered their question. So I think we're ready to move on to the next one when you're ready.
All right. So we're going to go back to the home screen here. And the next thing that we're going to dive into is entering payroll. So we're going to click on the Enter Payroll tab here. And you are going to be brought to a screen like this. Now, you'll note that this table just looks like, for a simplistic comparison, a Excel spreadsheet. I do know that a lot of businesses will keep their hours in that format. So you're just going to come in and you are going to enter the hours into this spreadsheet here. So on this screen, you can come in and you can see each employee. You can see what their pay type is. Are they hourly? Are they salary? Are they commission only? You can see what that pay type is. You can see where they're working. And if needed, sometimes there are situations where you need to give an employee 2 checks. If needed, you can work with Capital Payroll and they can enable this field as well, which is pay number, which does allow you to have multiple pays for the same employee in the same pay period. So for this one, just for the sake of brevity, I'm going to just enter 40 hours in for everybody. This is a weekly payroll, so everybody just got the full amount. If you note, I am just doing this by entering 40 and then hitting down on the arrows. You can also use tab or enter to navigate through these. The arrow keys moving left, right, up, down work all the same. So it's very simple, very user-friendly for you to come in and enter in your payroll here. You're going to come in and enter everything in. Now, if you note, I just did this as regular hours. There are numerous earning codes that can be turned on and off that you may need. That would be something that you would discuss with Jim and Nick. What earning codes do you need to be able to see and key in, etc. And they can make sure that the right columns are available to you. This screen is extremely customizable. So just work with them to make sure that the right portions and right columns are set up for you. If some of you do have multiple pay frequencies, just note that there is a box up here that does tell you this is the weekly. If there are multiple, there will be multiple items up here. You can select which pay frequency you are working on just by clicking on it. At this point, once you've keyed everything in, you can either choose to go into the next step, which would be to preview, or if you just want to key it and just make sure that everything's saved, go ahead and hit the save button. My personal suggestion is always hit the save button first before you go into preview, just so it's stored here. You can always come back in after it's saved and make a change if you need to. So you can completely go back to the home screen, come back to enter payroll, and because you hit saved, all of that data is stored right here. So again, it's all right there. We, at this point, will move on to the next step, which is the preview.
Hey, Josh, can we ask a question while you're
Okay.
So on that payroll grid, if they're using timekeeping, that is not applicable, correct? So this would only be if they're collecting time outside of the system via a manual time clock or maybe a point of sale system or just like writing the hours down, right?
Right. So if you're writing the hours down, if you're emailing them in, if you're phoning them into Capital Payroll, that would be where this screen would be beneficial. If you're using timekeeping through Capital Payroll, you wouldn't need to come in and really do anything on this screen unless it's potentially paying out an extra commission, giving somebody a bonus or something along those lines. But your payroll would really be run out of the timekeeping transaction screen or the employee time card screen. If you were using a separate timekeeping system altogether, and let's say you're exporting it into an Excel file, a CSV, an XLSX format, and then sending it over to Capital Payroll, just know that you wouldn't have to necessarily email it over anymore. You can work with Capital Payroll to come into the timekeeping and transaction screen and actually import that Excel file with the template that would be set up for you. And all of the information would directly pull in. So it would save you from having to enter it in. And it also helps to really ensure accuracy because the data is being imported in, thus eliminating really a lot of the chance for human error. Does that answer the question?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Josh, before you move on, can you also show that setup screen? As you mentioned, this screen is really customizable. I'm sorry, the setup here. So, if you don't have different locations or different departments, it's easy to go in and uncheck everything that you don't need or check things that you do need. And this is customizable on a per payroll basis. So if typically you just have regular hours, then that's what you have checked, but the next payroll you might have to enter some PTO hours or some overtime hours. You can just go and check that box, hit save, and when you come back, it will have been updated.
As soon as my mouse wants to click the button. There it goes.
Yeah, the GoToWebinar makes things a little bit slower for all of us.
And I apologize. There we go. Perfect. So there it comes back. You can see that the screen has been, we'll use the term cleaned up, simplified to just show what you need. So again, it can be as complex or as simple as you need it in terms of what data is displayed. Is there anything else, any other questions or something else that wants to be covered on this screen before we jump into the preview?
No additional questions from the panel.
All right, perfect. So the next screen that we're going to jump into is preview. So after you've entered your hours, this is where you would come in. Again, if you have multiple pay dates, pay frequencies, they would show up here. In this case, I had run a situation and shown how a manual bonus payroll could be run. So you can see that that is here, right here. In this case, we just want to focus on the standard weekly one that you would go through. So you would just make sure that that would be highlighted. In most cases, that is going to be the only line visible on the screen. Just again, give it a quick click and then come down to the preview button down here. Now, while the system is thinking and it is working on processing this, it is going through calculating taxes, generating all the tax payments, notating everything, and creating what we call a pre-process register and a preview for you. So from here, you're going to be able to see a lot of information. First off, over on the right-hand side of the screen, it is going to give you a very high-level summary of what the costs of the payroll are with several lines broken out of different data points. Direct deposit amount, check amount, taxes, employer liability, employee liability, as well as a few other options. So net payroll, do you have any reimbursements, deductions, workers' comp, what your invoice is, and what your total cash outlay for this payroll is going to be. You will also have what we call exceptions here. So we can see, all right, 4 employees are missing a workers' comp code. This will not stop you. This particular code will not stop you from closing out the payroll and sending it over to Capital for review. 1 employee was not processed because the direct deposit has an invalid routing number. So that would need to go and be corrected. You can do that in a couple of different ways. You could just delete the direct deposit entry. You could just make it inactive, or you could go in and populate the correct routing number and then go back to the enter payroll screen and then hit preview again. And then that record will then be cleared. From here, as I mentioned, you've got the estimated expenses that are right here. You can also get a payroll detail report just ahead of time by clicking that view preview button that is right there. And as we give it a second to load, again, as Erica mentioned, go to webinar does drastically pull our bandwidth. Let me zoom in so everybody can see. You will see that you can see each individual employee, what their hours, rate, and what would really appear on their pay stub. So it just gives you a good, quick summary of what's going on. You can then go to the last page and come down, and you will notice that all of these different numbers either appear independently or add up to a number that is on the right-hand side in the payroll expense screen right here. After that, you would simply need to come in and hit approve. And once you do that, it's going to pop up another screen, and you're going to have a button right where it says view preview and approve payroll. And when you do that, it will say submit payroll to processor. Now, since this is my demo account, I have it to where it has a different button. Yours would say submit to processor. You would then have an email dialog that pops up. It's going to go straight in and notify the team here that you are ready for them to look at the payroll, give it the good once over, double check everything, do all of our internal checks and processes and get it running through. You also will have the ability to send a custom message in the body of the pop-up. So if there's something that you want to alert the team to, such as I added 2 new employees with new direct deposits, can you please take a look at them? Here are their names. We paid somebody a secondary check, or somebody got a sizable bonus. Can you make sure that the withholding looks correct, etc.? You can communicate all of that to them in the pop-up that is right there. After that is done, it will send the notification in, and then you will of course be notified once they've closed everything out and it is finalized and ready to go. So that covers pretty much how to enter in payroll. Before we jump into reporting, where you have access to that, what reports are available to you, etc., it's time to pause for questions and see what we can answer.
Thanks, Josh. That was a great overview. Again, guys, use that question bar if you have any questions for Josh. If there's something specific you'd like him to show you or cover. At this point, I don't see any new questions being posed. So I think we can move forward, and if anything does come up, oh, I'm sorry, we did get one. Can it send an email to 2 people letting us know that the payroll went through? Like my boss and me. So she's asking, does she get a notification like returned to her letting her know that it was submitted and that it was received? Do they get a confirmation email?
So when payroll is closed, you should get an email back, and I do believe that depending upon who is set up in the back end in our system to receive those emails would determine who got them. But there should should be a way that we can accommodate more than one email. I'm assuming also in this case, it would not only be you that would have access to the portal, but your manager as well.
Yeah, Nick, do you guys send anything out, like a confirmation or personally, like personalized from you guys that's not coming from the system?
No, nothing separate from the system.
Michelle, does that answer your question? Yes, I think it did. So we do have another question from Kayla. Hi, we use a different program for PTO vacation time. Maybe I missed it, but how can I manually add in PTO for it to be deducted? We currently email our representative. So when you're on that payroll grid, entering in the payroll, if she puts hours in the PTO column, does it automatically reduce the balance to reflect
It does
that?
automatically reduce the balance.
Kayla, does that answer your question? So you just want to have that earning code enabled under the setup that we touched on earlier. So if you just make sure that that is turned on, you enter the hours in, it's going to automatically deduct it from the balance. Yes, I think that answered your question. Perfect. So I think we can move on to the reporting aspect.
Perfect. So on the home screen here, there are a few different ways that you can get to your reports. One is you come up here and you can see that there are the same three things: payroll docs, quick reports, and the report wizard. So quick reports are just what the team here sets up as the most commonly used reports. So you can click in here and it will just give you 5 to 10 different options of reports that would be available to you. Where you really want to focus your time here when you're looking at reports is going to be payroll docs and the report wizard. So any of you now, whenever payroll is closed, you might get an email with the payroll package, as we would call it. That's just a series of reports that would be available to you to look at, to see, that just come with each and every payroll. So what you would then have access to here is you can come into payroll documents, you set your date range, your status, and what you're looking for. So in this case, docs, there are several different options here. So if you want to see quarterlies, you want to see your year end, you want to see your annual. So like year end, maybe you want to see your W-2s. You can come in and get those quarterlies. You want to see your quarterly filings that Capital takes care of for you. Or you want to just see your standard payroll documents, that would be docs. You can come and say, all right, what's new? And then what's been done in the past, 7 days, you specify your date range here. So we're just going to take a look here at a specific company. Again, this is my demo account. So I have a few different companies set up underneath it. So we'll just jump into one here. And you can see that each report that is generated as part of the payroll package lives here. So if you wanted to see the payroll check report, you can hit view, the vendor check. If you wanted to see your invoice report, you could come in and hit view. It will then load it. You get to choose how you want to view it. Personally, I like PDF. It just allows you to scroll and maneuver more easily. So we can see here that for this particular company on this most recent pay date, you get your base payroll, your delivery, and your payroll checks and your total. So it just breaks it out for you. And again, you can see that for any of the reports that are included in your payroll package. At any point, you can come back and say, I want to see any and all of the payroll packages. So for your company, you could say all and go back indefinitely for any payroll that was processed in the system, or maybe you just want to go back 30 days and catch the last one. So if you need to get a report from last pay period, this is definitely a quick and easy way for you to come in and find that report if it's included in your payroll package that would be sent to you at the close of each payroll. Before we jump into the payroll or the report wizard, does anybody have any questions on the payroll docs?
Not seeing any questions right now.
All right, perfect. So if there's ever, the case where you want to run your own reports, or it's something outside of what you have in your standard payroll docs, you can work with the team here to have the functionality of the report wizard turned on for you. With that said, you can ask for specific reports to be enabled, and upon doing so, you would be able to run them at any time you need over whatever date range that you might need for it. Again, GoToWebinar really does slow down our bandwidth here. So, all right, perfect. Back to the home screen. Whenever you're ready and you want to run into that scenario, you can just come to the report wizard. It's basically a walkthrough, a how-to guide to get where you want to go. So in this case, let's just stick with payroll reports. So you have payroll as your main type, and then you would have a subtype over here, and you can see that there are several different options. For this case, let's just look at a payroll register report. We're going to go to next, and then depending upon the report types that you select will determine what that next screen is. Some may jump directly to date, others will walk you through division, location, department. Others will add, hey, which employees do you want, or which workers' comp codes or taxes do you want us to display? So in this case, it's going to be division, location, and then finally department. As it loads for us.
While that's loading, so what you're showing, Josh, so if I only wanted to see California, I could just unclick the rest of them and get like specific.
You can uncheck select all, and then it would be the same as selecting multiple lines in Excel. You would click one, hit and hold control on your keyboard, click the other ones that you want to see, then hit next, and it will move it through to the next one.
Got it. And obviously, the bigger the report, it is going to take a little bit of time to, compile all the data and to load to get it to display. So, GoToWebinar likes to make things a little more complicated for us.
Very much so. Very much so. So I'm going to go back to select all, and then I'm going to hit next to go through. This time, it's going to populate employees. And then we will be able to pick our date range, and then finally the reports that are available under that subtype will populate. So as I am navigating through that, please submit whatever questions you have in, and I will do my best to answer them while we are waiting for my reduced internet speed to catch up.
Thanks, Josh. I have a question for the group. So how many people are already using Employer on the Go? If you want to just put me or hands up or something in the question box. I'm just curious. We are not. Kayla, you're not using it. Based on what you've seen so far, do you think this is something that you would benefit from using? Do you want to learn more about Employer on the Go? Oh, we have two Kaylas. It's a very popular name. There we go. So he's getting his date range running here. Perfect, Kayla. We'd love to help you with this. David loves the reporting feature. It's a great feature. The fact that you can go in and get what you need when you need it. We all know that as a business owner, we're probably not working 8 to 5, right? We're working in the middle of the night and at 2 a.m. when we should be sleeping, we're running reports and trying to compile all of our data. So having access to going in and running this on your time makes it very easy to use, very flexible. It works for what you need. You're not dependent on us to provide that for you. Although we are happy to help with any reports or any questions you may have, but this just gives you a little bit of independence in the platform. So you can see Josh is going through and selecting what type of report he wants to run. So you got a lot of parameters, so you're able to narrow down exactly what you need out of the system to get the exact detail you're looking for.
Yeah, and Erica's, exactly right. You can narrow this, these reports down to where it's only for a single employee. A lot of times, you may have to email in and say, hey, I need a report that shows every check the employee's gotten for the last 2 years, they're applying for a mortgage and they need this. Well, you can do that very easily just by coming in and saying like, all right, I need a payroll detail. And as you're going through, you would just select that one employee, none of the others. And then you can choose, all right, well, how do I want to group that? Well, right now, it would just show me everything on one line, even if I'd selected, for 2 years. But if you come to the report formatting, you can notice that you can do it by pay. And then what it's going to do is show each individual paycheck that the employee got by date, all the way through the entire time frame that you selected. At any point, once you've gotten all your parameters in, you can simply select the format. Again, I would heavily recommend PDF just because it does make life a lot simpler for you. Once you hit run and it loads, up here, it will have a button to print and to download. So at any point you could download that, email it out, things of that nature, should you ever, need to. Just kind of touching on this and to give a little, hint of, what my employer on the go, which is where the wonderful onboarding tool, well as numerous other functionalities are. If you were to have your employees use that, they would have access to a portal themselves where they could go in and any paycheck that's ever been created by the system, they can go in and pull it themselves. So that could be something you could pass off to your employees. It just allows them to have a little bit better access to their payroll data. You could even potentially put them in, put them as responsible for updating their address. If they ever change anything along those lines. But I'm sure Erica and the team will talk a little bit more about if you want to learn more about that product and its fun functionalities, when and where you can do so.
Yeah, so we're actually hosting a webinar next month specific to My Employer on the Go, where we're going to go in depth. But since we're closing in on our time, we don't want to go over that because we know you guys have a lot going on today. We wanted to round out with the tools and resources that we have available to support you. Employer on the Go is a massive product. You can do so much in the portal, and we could spend hours talking about all the different components and functionality that you get access to. So if you have questions, if there is something specific that you're trying to accomplish or you want to know how to do, don't hesitate to reach out to Nick. We're more than happy to help you with that. But let me just turn it back over to my screen real quick so that we can show you some of the resources that we have available. Let me see. Can you see my screen? I'm not sure if it came back. I don't think it did.
Not yet.
There we go. That's loading. Okay. Josh, thank you for that. An important thing to mention, and Nick, we're going to let you jump in here, is that we have a wealth of tools and resources available to help support you. So, Nick, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, thank you. So I really encourage everybody to go and take a look at our new website we just launched a few weeks ago. And on the website, there is a video training page in which you can click on one of these more broad categories and see videos pertaining to those categories. And it goes into a little bit more depth with short videos about certain topics within Employer on the Go, MyGo, timekeeping, and others, as you can see there. So that's always available to you on our website. And obviously this is Employer on the Go is not meant to replace our personal customer service. So this just gives you all access to more information, making it more transparent, making submitting payroll an easier and more streamlined process. We'll always still be a phone call or email away if you need us. Yeah, and we just like to provide all these resources to you if you need them.
Great. And what about the cost?
So yeah, good point. So Employer on the Go is at no additional cost to you. So this is a tool that we will provide as part of your current service.
Perfect.
Just, yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, Erica, as you mentioned, we do have the MyGo, My Employer on the Go demo on May 13th. So that's coming next, and we will be sending out registration links for that. That is, a product that works seamlessly with Employer on the Go that includes timekeeping, PTO requests, e-signature of documents, employee electronic onboarding, and a whole lot more. Those you don't have to use that. It's definitely an option, but together, Employer on the Go and MyGo for your employees works really well and seamlessly.
Perfect. So we did just put a question up on the screen, just asking, is this something you're ready to get started with? So if you would like to start using Employer on the Go, and like Nick said, it's no additional cost, so it just gives you a lot more functionality, a lot more access to your data. You can be more hands-on, but it doesn't take away from the customer service experience that you're used to getting here with Capital Payroll. We're still here to support you guys. So if you could just answer that poll on the screen so that we know who to follow up with, we would greatly appreciate it. And again, if you have any additional questions for any of us, please feel free to post them in that question box. We're going to leave it open for about another 3 minutes, and then this is also being recorded. So I think we're going to post it to that video page that we referenced just a minute ago. So if you wanted to go back and watch it for future reference, you will have that, but you'll also have all those individual videos as well that show you how to do specific things. How are we able to view pay online? So are you looking for pay, like individual pay rates? Are you looking for like total payroll cost for the pay period? Karen, can you elaborate on what you're looking for? Total pay for the pay period? Okay, so the payroll package that Josh was referencing earlier gives you the payroll detail report that breaks all of those costs down. Do you want us to show that portion again? Please. Okay, so let me just go ahead and close this poll out because I think you're not going to be able to see anything else on the screen until I put that down. So if you guys could just give us a yes or no on that real quick before we take it down, we can show you, Karen, what that payroll package report looks like. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close this. If you didn't get a chance to answer, no worries. You can follow up with Nick. He'd be happy to show you that. Josh, can I make you the presenter again and you just show where that payroll package report is?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can take the screen or if you want to.
As soon as it lets me, Erica.
I'm trying to find you. Hold on a second. There's so many options in GoToWebinar toolbar. Okay, there you go. Coming up. So we're going to show you here, Karen, how you get that report, but also there are videos in that training video that Nick mentioned that walks you through how to get these reports out of the system as well.
Yep. So whenever you're on the home page here, any of that payroll doc, the payroll package is just done through payroll docs. And then you would only have your company. Again, this is my demo. So I have several different companies for different situations set out. You would really then be focused on the pay date. You would just find the correct pay date. We're just going to take the same one that we went through before. You hit the little plus button and it breaks out each of those reports that are included in your payroll package here. You can then choose how to view them and then simply hit view and you will have that report right at your fingertips.
So for the total pay or total expense, is that the payroll detail report that she would want to reference?
Yeah, that would be, it would be the total of the payroll detail report and the invoice, right? But those would be the two that you would have.
Perfect. Karen, does that answer your question? Yes. Great. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and let you get back to your day. If you do have any questions, feel free to follow up with Nick. He is at nick@capitalpayrollpartners.com, and we are here to support you guys. Have a great one.
Thank you.